for Storytime with Jocelyn. We're all about the mice. So shout out to our beautiful cat, Ellie Luna. Today we're going to be reading a story called, Is This the House of Mistress Mouse? And it's from Richard Scarry. And trust me, he's not scary. So we're going to be reading a collection for that story from his collection. Little tongue tie. Jocelyn's having a good day, so she's excited. And I'm also going to share with you a fable from Aesop about a mouse. So let's get started. Is this the house of Mistress Mouse? Jocelyn's excited. This is the house of Mr. Mouse. He lived all alone and he is very lonely. One day he received a letter from Mistress Mouse. The letter said, Dear Mr. Mouse, I am very lonely too. Will you please come to visit me? Love and kisses, Mistress Mouse. Mr. Mouse said to himself, I would very much like to visit Mistress Mouse, but I don't know where she lives. However, I will just have to get into my little car and go look for her. There's the car, and that's the house of Mr. Mouse, and here's Mr. Mouse. There is the house just ahead, said Mr. Mouse. Perhaps that is where Mistress Mouse lives. He knocked on the door. Is this the house of Mistress Mouse? He asked. Mr. Mouse was very frightened, for that was the house of So whose house do you think that belonged to? Let's find out. The house of Mr. Cat. What a cute little mouse, thought Mr. Cat as he watched him speed away in his car. I wonder why he was so frightened. But Mr. Mouse knew better than to go into Mr. Cat's house, didn't he? Soon he came to a bright red barn. He knocked on the barn door. It was the house of cut. I wonder whose house that is. Who do you think lives in that red barn? There's Mr. Cat. It was the house of Mrs. Hen and her baby chicks. Please don't bother me. I am teaching my chicks to scratch, she said. How to scratch. 1, 2, 3. And Jocelyn's scratching her ear right now, so she already knows how to do it. And so Mr. Mouse traveled on until he came to a big castle house. He knocked on the castle door. It was the house of Roar! There's Mrs. Hen and her chicks learning how to scratch. And there's the castle. Whose house do you think that Mr. Mouse is at? The castle house of Mr. Lion. He was in a very bad temper because he had a very bad toothache. Mr. Mouse raced away as fast as he could go. Finally, he came to a cute little house on a lovely country lane. He knocked on the pretty little yellow door. Is this the house of Mistress Mouse? He asked. The door slowly opened. There's Mr. Lion. Poor guy has a bad toothache. But whose house do you think that Mr. Mouse is at? Huh? With the yellow door. Let's find out. Right, Joss? Sure enough, it was the house of Mistress Mouse. Yay! Yay, smiling mamas! Mistress Mouse was so happy to see him, and Mr. Mouse was so happy to see her. Will you marry me so that we will be never alone? Asked Mr. Mouse. Why, yes, said Mistress Mouse. And so they were married by Preacher Mole. Mr. Mouse gave Mistress Mouse a golden wedding ring with a bright diamond on top. Ooh. That's a fancy ring, don't you think? And don't they make a lovely, beautiful couple? And where's Mr. Mole? Actually, is he Mr. Mole or Preacher Mole? What? Jocelyn corrected me as Preacher Mole. And from that day on, they were never lonely. They went on picnics. They took rides in the country. Ooh. And they went roaring on a lake. And then one night, after they had finished their supper, they heard something. Ooh. It was a very tiny squeak, squeak, squeak coming from the bedroom. What do you suppose it was that was squeaking? Jocelyn, what do you think was squeaking? I know, huh? Let's find out. But aren't they having such a lovely life together of picnics and in the country and rowing boats? Let's find out what's squeaking. It was their baby! He wanted to be kissed goodnight. Good night, Daddy Mouse, and good night, Mommy Mouse. Good night, Baby Mouse. Good night. Aww. And that is the end of that story. So, that's from Richard Scarry's Storybook. And I'm going to end on a beautiful little fable from Jocelyn's Fable book that teaches you morals. She loves her little story, so this is our first fable for our story time with Jocelyn. And let's go ahead and go. This is called The Mouse and the Weasel. A lean and hungry mouse once pushed his way, not without some trouble, through a small hole into a corn crib, and there fed for some time so busily that when would he have returned by the same way he entered? He found himself too plump to get through the hole, push as hard as he might. A weasel, who had great fun in watching the vain struggles of his fat friend, called to him and said, "Listen to me, my good mouse. There is but one way to get out, and that is to wait till you have become as lean as when you had first gone in." And the moral is, the remedy is often as bad as the disease. I thought that was a cute story because Jocelyn has almost about 10 to 15 diseases that she has been diagnosed with throughout her life. But you know what? The remedy is not necessarily the medicine. It's not necessarily the care that she gets, because she gets both, or the food that she eats, which is very different than what you guys out there eat. But it is the love she receives. And with that note, go kiss your mommy and daddy and whoever else that you may live with, because you never know. And love on them. And have a blessed week. And we'll see you next week for Storytime with Jocelyn. Don't forget to like this video and share our channel. Thank you for helping us out. And we love you guys. And God bless. Bye, Jocelyn, right?